So here we are again, back by unpopular demand and a little bit of self indulgence. I spent some of last week working on a piece of writing that I'm doing for a TV show that hopefully is going to get made in South Africa later this year. It's set post apartheid um, and is about an awful lot of themes that come out of the post apartheid era. In writing that TV show, I came up with a particularly brutal scene that I decided to set to music. And I don't often write music cues for my TV shows and my movies because my music taste is not exactly top shelf. My music taste is the stuff that you get from the bottom of the counter that nobody else is really that interested in. But in this particular case, while I was writing the scene, there was a very particular South African song that I just felt was absolutely perfect and appropriate for the scene. And I also felt was worthy of notice. And even though I know that nobody watches these videos, the reactions to music that other people are not reacting to don't get watched. But I'm going to do it anyway for myself because I think this is an important song that talks about important things, and I think it's worthy of attention. And if I can get even one or two of you, Mick, if you watch this, it makes me doing it worth doing. Paul, the same. Those few of you that come along on these journeys where the view count goes from hundreds and thousands to tens and twenties, this is an important song. It's an amazing song. It's a song so obscure that I couldn't even find the lyrics on my usual lyric site unless I went with the Josh Groban version, which is not the correct version. It's not the original as written in the 80s. So this is a South African band that was made up of some young guys who had all done the enforced required military service. They'd served in the South African military. And as a result of that service, they wrote this song, this anti-apartheid protest song, that is quite brilliant. So this is Bright Blue, Weeping, the original from I think somewhere around 1981 or 82. I might be wrong. I don't know if it says it here, but it's sort of the mid 80s, right in the middle of the worst in many ways of the sort of battle for South Africa's soul. This is Weeping.
Then standing back, he made it plain that the nightmare would never ever rise again. But the fear and the fire and the guns remain.
I'm getting goosebumps from these lyrics, even though I spent a large part of yesterday listening to it while I wrote. The situation in South Africa was very simple. The white, predominantly Afrikaans government was supported in no small part by the British and the Americans because they were positioned as a force standing in oppression to communism. And the world for quite a long time was willing to look beyond and past everything else that white government did because they were a bastion against the growth of communism in that same environment when Vietnam and Korea and lots of other conflicts, the fall of Iraq, of Iran, the transitions in the Middle East, all of that was an expression of that Cold War where you were either pro or anti communism and the spread of communism. And South Africa positioned itself as being on the side of the anti-communists. And as a result, for a long time, they got something of a pass. They lived in fear. There was a term in South Africa, die swart gevaar, the black threat, the black fear. The white South African was fed this steady diet of this drawing near fear of being overwhelmed by the black majority. And so they kept a secret behind their houses. They built these townships. This one is Khayelitsha on the flats outside Cape Town, one of the most beautiful cities in the world, but made up in no small part by this township that is just a blight, that is barely a place that human beings could live. In Johannesburg, the township was called Soweto. And I'm sure a lot of people think, oh, Soweto, that's some kind of interesting African word. No, Southwest Township. They were literally placed in a name that was generated as part of the administrative placing of people into this secret place behind the houses of the white minority. It was a demon that they didn't face. So instead, they built walls of steel and flame and put guns, men with guns in place to keep it tame. And then they said to the world, we won't let that nightmare rise. We won't let the communists win. And translate that into, we won't let the black majority win. We've got it under control. We've got it contained with our guard towers and our men with guns and steel. But the fear and the fire and the guns remained. I mean, that barely does service to the incredible injustice and pain that was being done in my name to Black Africa, Black Africans in South Africa.
Never ever rise again, but the fear and the fire and the guns remain. It doesn't matter now, it's over anyhow. He tells the world that it's sleeping, but as the night came round, I heard its slowly sound. It wasn't roaring, it was weeping. It wasn't roaring, it was weeping.
So there's the chorus, and there's the thesis of the song. The song was written by these young, white, Jewish South Africans as a result of their conscripted service in the South African military, because they'd been told that behind that wall was a monster. They'd been told that behind that wall was their destruction. And South Africa was telling the world, we've got it under control. Don't worry about it. We've got it under control. We've got you. Keep buying our gold. Keep supporting us. Keep propping us up. We'll be the linchpin against die swart gevaar. And these were guys that, in the name of that oppression, were sent in uniform, in military vehicles, into those townships. And they realized that roaring was the weeping of a people, many peoples. They were howling for justice. They were howling for freedom. But they were howling as they wept. it's right there in the text. As the world was increasingly looking at South Africa and saying, what are you doing? What is going on? Can we support this? The South Africans were saying, nothing to see here. We've sorted it. They set up what were called independent homelands, self-governing independent homelands that weren't really self-governing and weren't really homelands. But they created this entire ecosystem and infrastructure that was just designed to say to the world, no, 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 no. Separate but equal. And it was separate. But it wasn't equal because it was enforced separation, enforced by fear and fire and guns. And these young guys, quite early in the 80s, I suspect before a lot of us, you know, I was 15 in 1982. Didn't know any of this, really. I was fortunate enough that I was never eligible for South African military service because of an administrative mistake that the bureaucrats made. And that's pretty good, because if they'd asked me to go, I would have said no, and then I would have been ejected from the country and would have lost an entire lifetime and career and opportunity. But I didn't, at this time, when this song was made, I didn't really know what was behind that wall. I was one of the people being told, it's all fine, nothing to see here. Listen to how quiet it is. I didn't hear the weeping. To an endless shame.
Reason to explain why the fear and the fire and the guns remain. It doesn't matter now, it's over anyhow. He tells the world that it's sleeping. But as the night came round, I heard its lonely sound. It wasn't roaring, it was weeping. It wasn't roaring, it was weeping.
There's the battle cry. Say over, say over, say over now. Please end it, they were saying. Say over, say over, say over now. In the concentration on lyric and on narrative, I missed it. But there's an interesting point earlier in the song where they included a couple of they included the basic line of Nkosi Sikelel' Africa, which at the time was a banned song. It was the anthem of the ANC, the banned political organization that would one day come to power in South Africa. And these these young boys included that in this song, and the South African censors, who were famously fierce and famously dumb. I mean, super dumb. They missed it. So even musically, they put a little bit of resistance into this song. This is a time and a place in my own history and in the world's history that is so significant and feels increasingly significant now as we put up walls, as we tell people there's nothing to see behind the wall, as we tell people that those behind the wall are the threat that we are going to be controlling. What's that lyric? We've reached our goal. The threat is under firm control. Let me tell you something. If you put a wall around it, it isn't under control. If you have to maintain it with fear and fire and guns, it isn't under control. All you're doing is feeding heat into the flames. All you're doing is creating more weeping. And eventually that tide of tears can become a tsunami, and it's so much better if it doesn't. This is a lovely track. It's been done by various people since then, but these young guys, post their military service, created something that is really, really moving and really important. And is a resistance song in the best tradition of resistance songs. And thank you for watching with me. And hopefully you can see it again when it's on my TV show during a particularly brutal moment that takes place behind a wall with fear and guns. No flame, but a very, very serious piece of knifing. Thanks for watching. Keep the faith.